Hey everyone, and welcome back to Forethought, a podcast series dedicated to raising awareness about mental health and well-being through lived experience stories. My name is Joel and I'll be your host. And before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge I'm recording today from the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, celebrating the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of Australia. So today we're joined by Sam Wilson, the author behind the Sobering Thoughts blog, which is a weekly journal that was started a week after sobriety and has continued ever since. So, g'day Sam, how you going?
Good man, how you going?
Good. Can't believe it's already Tuesday.
Yeah, I can't believe it's already spring nearly.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess just to get started, if you can tell everyone, who you are, what you do, and a bit of an intro to Sam.
So my name's Sam, obviously. I'm a operations manager, I suppose, for a ASX top 100 company. I'm a new dad. My young fella turned 1 the other day. I'm just a normal guy, man, I suppose. Other than I don't drink anymore, don't do drugs anymore. But yeah, just trying to take it easy down here on the south coast, pretty much.
Yeah, you live in a beautiful part of the world. Must be nice
Yeah,
down the coast.
yeah, it's awesome, man. We've been here a little over a year now, so it's Initially I was a little bit concerned about it, but like most things, once I do it, I realized I was stupid for being scared.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
awesome.
You have a nice winter tan, which might be part because of Thailand, part
Yeah,
because of living down the coast.
care of Thailand and and poor sun protection on my end.
But yeah, really excited today to talk about something that I know is really close to your heart, and a lot of people who might listen into this might be in a space where they might be struggling, I guess, with sobriety, and then I guess it would be really awesome just to really have an open chat around that experience. I know you and I have talked previously around, stresses of younger life and the weight of expectation and how that kind of rolls in. But I guess to give everyone a bit of a start off, like, what is Sobering Thoughts and how did you start writing?
So Easter last year was sort of my last hurrah, my last bender. I had been probably for about 9 months progressively getting worse, sort of through lockdowns and stuff, and we decided to have a baby, move to the coast, buy another house, rent out the house in Canberra, all this stuff. And at the time we were flying, like life was easy, interest rates were low, we were saving money and just sort of felt like we could do anything. And all those stresses sort of started to pile up and I wasn't coping with them appropriately. Like I've always run and stuff, but I've always drank too. And I basically got to a point where very regularly I was sort of drinking on weekends, but weekends would start on Wednesday nights and finish on Sunday nights. And I was doing drugs every weekend pretty well, often on my own, just at home in the backyard, in the shed, just fucking about till like 3, 4 in the morning, like and just getting nothing done on weekends. And I think a little part of me was a little bit scared of everything that was about to happen, I suppose. Um, and I think subconsciously, even I was trying to avoid doing the things that I needed to do to make the move happen and all this kind of stuff because I was scared that maybe I'd made the wrong decision, which is pretty funny because I'm sitting there like, blowing, at least $500 a week on doing dumb shit and, like stressing about the decision. And I wasn't stressing about the stuff I should have been stressing about, the stuff I should have been, focusing on. So I think, a little part of me sort of was scared. And my missus went away for Easter for the long weekend. And I just thought, fuck, giddy up. I was excited for it like the whole week. not because I, didn't like her or anything like that, but just like how good, like I could do whatever I want. Long weekend. I actually had from Easter to Anzac Day off, so I knew I had like a little runoff period. Had the next week runoff period to fucking lay around and do nothing and sort myself out after. So ended up going on a mad 4-dayer and blew like $3,000 of our savings in 4 days. Remember almost none of it, and it was the Tuesday night. So no, sorry, it was the Monday night, Easter Monday, and my missus came back, and I was just with a mate who also had the next day off or whatever, and it was about 3 a.m, and I checked my phone. I had a million missed calls, messages. She'd been home, heavily pregnant, and I'm just like at a dude's house, like fucking, like sitting around the kitchen, fucking talking shit, like. And I got home, and she's into me, like mostly upset because like she didn't know where I was or that I was okay. Like she knows I'm probably my harshest critic, and I would fucking berate myself, every Monday, like for a long time. And so she never really got too upset about that. And I came home and she was into me, and I sort of just fucking, like just let it all go. I just sort of started crying and sort of couldn't be consoled, and like crying like I hadn't cried since I was a child. Like, and I think that's the reason why, it was because I hadn't cried like that since I was a child. You know what I mean? Or even at all, nearly. So it was just sort of months and months and months of build up of stress, and me just using, ineffective coping mechanisms to handle it. Because I thought, because I was working and doing well at work and, running and whatever, that I was fine. But like in reality, I was a functioning addict, which is, there's, lots of them out there, and lots of people hide it really well. And you get really good at hiding it because you practice hiding it flat out, so you get really skilled at it. But anyway, I jumped onto Twitter. I've always been a bit of a Twitter user, and I put up this depressive post, forgot about it, woke up the next morning, checked Twitter, and I was like, oh fuck, there's another one. Another post I've got to delete. But I was really surprised. It was saying on lines of, I've never been in a better position financially, blah blah, but I've never been more depressed in my life. And pretty dramatic stuff after 4 days of fuck all sleep, and, too much of the bad stuff. But I ended up opening it up. I was like, fuck, I'll have to delete that. But I didn't delete it because I just like all these notifications of great support from essentially, like people who I've, like spoken with and whatever, but essentially strangers. And the outpouring of support sort of blew me away a little bit. And I was like, oh fuck, like people care. Like, and I guess I hadn't given anybody an opportunity to care because I was doing everything in silence. Like I was, like with work and whatever, I was putting on a front that made me look like everything was sweet, and it wasn't. It was fucking terrible. And like that's probably in recent times the lowest I've ever been. And early sobriety was sort of pretty similar too. But I just like I knew my goal was to just stop drinking and taking drugs for long enough to sort my head out, because I knew that my substance abuse stemmed from unhealed mental trauma. I didn't know what they were. I didn't know why or whatever. I just knew that I had issues that I'd never dealt with. I've been in and out of psychologists since I was 20 or 21, I think. I'm 30, nearly 35 now. So, and I just, my only goal was to be sober for long enough to clear my head enough to actually to try and get to the bottom of, what was causing me to drink the way I was drinking and take drugs the way I was taking drugs. And because it was always just like, I can easily not drink, but I could never drink 2 or 3. It was, like as soon as as soon as I sort of felt that first little bit of dopamine, or that first drink, and the weight falls off your shoulders a bit, like it was just like, I want more of this feeling, and it's that chase the dragon mentality. It's so real, because like the first bit's the best. But yeah, I wanted people to understand that I meant what I was saying, and I wasn't just seeking attention. So a week later, I retweeted the initial tweet, and I just wrote a little thread like saying, like I just want people to know that I wasn't talking shit, and I haven't drank or taken drugs since I made that initial tweet. And it was only a short thread, and again, it was received really well. And then I sort of started using that as my motivation, as my accountability. Maybe I made it up in my head, but at that point it was like, whatever I have to do, whatever I have to tell myself, even if I know that they're potentially lies or whatever I have to do, whatever I have to tell myself, that's what I'm going to do. So the next week I did it again, and then I started getting people messaging me saying, like, I feel similar, or or just messages of support or whatever. And I got to about 10 weeks, and I saw Benny Alexander posted on Strava a link to his Substack. And then I knew who Benny was, but we hadn't really spoken yet at R4R or whatever. And I commented or messaged, I was like, oh man, how good is it? Like, just like writing about what's in your head, like just getting it out of your head and onto some platform, any kind of platform. And he's like, man, you need to jump on this. And then, so I jumped on Substack then from, I think, about week 10, and week 71 now. I was having a look the other day, I think on Thursday, maybe it might be 500 days. So, but yeah, the weekly writing has, I do it for myself, 100% for myself. And it's, if I wanted to, I could go and get hints and tips off fucking gurus and stuff, and be like, how can I write this so you can read it? You know what I mean? Like, help me with my fucking taglines or whatever. But it's not about that. It's essentially a journal that a personal journal, and I try and keep it like that, so that I can arrange my own thoughts and understand my own thoughts, and try and figure shit out for myself. And I just share it because I know, like, so I'll talk about it later, but I've got ADHD. I didn't get diagnosed, I was 28, but it makes you sort of a real keen observer, and I see a lot, you know what I mean? I take a lot in, and I know that if I'm feeling these things, other people are too. So I just share it, and some of it's pretty honest, some of it's stuff that I probably wouldn't say. Like, I wouldn't stand in front of fucking 250 people and say it. But if that's the format that I'm comfortable sharing, and I can reach people with it, well, cool. Like, I get messages here and there, and
I think that's one of the powerful things about it as well, because if you were standing in a room of 250 people, everyone has to listen to you, but these people are choosing to read your blog, and if they don't want to, they can stop at any sentence. So it's kind of like, if they're going to go through and read it and get something from it, they're making that conscious decision to read it, which is one of the reasons I like it, apart from your Microsoft Paint Photoshop, which we were talking about the other day, which never change that. I don't care what you do, but just like still keep it basic and true. But I think that's kind of really interesting when you sort of talk about that link between ADHD and, does the writing, apart from helping you get your thoughts together, does it kind of help with managing ADHD as well?
Yeah, I definitely like that is one of the key things, I suppose. One thing I've noticed is that the more I practice sobriety or do things that are going to aid my sobriety or make my sobriety easier, they also make, coping with ADHD better. Like, I take less. I'm back now taking the same dosage of medication that I started on. So at a time I took twice as much. But that's when I was 5-6 years ago now. So that's when I was drinking every weekend, and then and yeah, between writing and a few other things, like I take less medication now because, and I believe because of that, because I'm just doing things that I probably never thought I'd do at certain points in my life, like breath work and stuff. I would have fucking laughed at anyone who suggested that to me at certain amount of years ago. But there's a reason people talk about it. There's a reason people do it. And look, like I've tried shit that other people have recommended and it doesn't work. And that's because not everything's going to work for everybody. But I think like that willingness to at least try things, because my fear of what other people will think, or my fear of failure or whatever, has stopped me doing so much in my life. And I guess I had to get desperate enough to try things, to discover how fucking good they can be for you,
Yeah, because we talked about that, when we caught up, whenever that was the other week, talking about, this weight of expectation, particularly when you're, a young man. And, I think you and I have a bit of similarity in that regard, where it's like everyone was kind of expecting us to do so well. Did that kind of then create the opposite outcome where you couldn't handle the pressure or you couldn't handle the stress, and that sort of led to drinking and all of those kinds of things. Like, what's your take on the weight of expectation?
Yeah, so I think without sounding like a wanker, like a lot of neurodiverse people are fairly intelligent. And I found a lot of stuff really easy, particularly through like primary school and early high school and stuff. And I was told by people I was clever, you know what I mean? And typically, but I didn't get diagnosed till, late 20s. So every report card said, I just don't understand why he won't try. He's so much ability, he's so capable, blah, blah. And I think that got to my head a little bit. Like I cruised through year 10, everything. Like I could just do an assignment, that night and get reasonable marks without trying. And then I sort of learned that I could fucking do the minimum and still get a C, like I could still get 70%, like by just doing it the night it was due or whatever. And I think, yeah, like, and then I got to year 11 and 12, and for those who don't know, in Canberra, year 11 and 12 is actually at a different school in the public system. So there they give you heaps more autonomy, and you don't get in trouble if you don't go to class. It's not called wagging. You just fail, and they don't care. And I struggled with that, like without the structure. And I found it near impossible to study. I still got my year 12 with, accredited maths and English and stuff. But yeah, like I was telling you, I thought I want to be an architect. And then halfway through year 11, I was like, oh, I want to be an electrician. And then, so I just sort of stopped trying. I secured an apprenticeship like 12 months before I left school. That lasted 6 months. On reflection now, I can see that I was getting bullied and whatever, and didn't handle it. And that kind of burnt me a little bit. And anyway, I ended up being sort of 19 and had an opportunity to start doing road work with a family member who was sort of a boss. And I ended up, like I just remember one day sitting there like on the side of a fucking road in the middle of nowhere and being like, how the fuck is this what I'm doing? Like I was making good money. There's nothing like, and I still work in that industry today, like 15 years later. And it's paid me really well. Like, on reflection, there's nothing wrong with it. But I felt like a failure. I felt like I was underachieving, and I felt like I was letting people down and disappointing people. And but no one else was saying that to me.
Yeah, right.
No one told me that. This is all things like, sure, I was exposed to certain, things and whatever as a kid where people would say, oh, you got to get a qualification, or you got to, go to whatever. But the only person who had such extreme expectations and then, a relative amount of disappointment in what I had achieved at that point, was myself.
Mm.
And it was because of what I thought other people would have thought of me, or, or how I thought, like, my parents are proud of me no matter what, right? And I know that now, but I was like, fucking, Like I wonder if, I used to worry if, are they scared to tell people what I do? Like, you know what I mean? And I think I was just a bit lost early. And then when I was sort of 23, 22, I moved back from the coast to Canberra, moved into a group house. And I thought I was just partying and having fun and whatever. But, I was got to a point where trying to convince myself that I'm enjoying myself and that I'm having fun. In hindsight, I was fucking miserable. And that's why I was doing what I was doing. And I couldn't stop doing it because it was like, it's just this cycle. Like, yeah, it makes you feel like shit, but it's the only thing that makes you feel good. So you do it again. And it's funny, like we'd do speed and stuff, and most of the guys would head out, go clubs or whatever. And I'd just fucking sit around the table, that fucking glass table everyone's got in the backyard. Like,
Yep.
I'd be sitting around that with one or two guys, and that was like the best I felt. And I think it all sort of stemmed from, my view of myself, and like, and I still struggle with that. I still have, self-esteem issues and body image issues and whatever, like most people would, I suppose. Maybe mine are a little bit worse, but I think a lot of that just comes down to that expectation that I thought other people had of me based on what other people told me when I was even younger. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I thought I had to do that or that or that to be deemed successful in someone else's eyes. But like, the reality is like, well, you could get to this point and some dude up there is going to think that's not successful, but some dude down there will. And ultimately, none of that fucking matters anyway. Like,
Yeah.
it's
quite interesting. Like, when did you first go to see a psychologist? Like, what was that first experience? Was that, early 20s? Was that mid 20s?
It was around that time when I came back home and moved into a share house. So probably 22. And I remember trying to, bro, he sent me to this place and I had to put his cap on my head and had all these wires coming out of some, I think it was a CT, I don't know, some scan. Because I said to him, like, sometimes I feel like I'm just standing there watching everything happen through like a TV camera. And ultimately what it was I wasn't present because my mind was doing everything it could to be anywhere else. You know what I mean? I just developed that muscle in my mind to like, because being present meant potentially confronting shit I didn't want to confront. So he thought I had like a fucking brain issue, like a physical. And I remember him saying to me, like, this GP, and he's like, oh, this one lady come in talking about this once and she died. Like, I was like,
oh, whoa.
Like, yeah. I was just like, holy shit. And then that was like my first experience with it. And I was like, that's fucking a very negative experience. I'm not going to pursue this avenue again because not if I'm being met with this shit.
Yeah.
But I really struggled at that age and in that state of mind doing the shit I was doing. I really struggled to sort of describe what I felt, because again, like when we were younger, like there wasn't all this knowledge and I suppose noise around mental health and mindfulness and like I think maybe kids are practicing it a little bit in school to a degree now and whatever, but like not then. Like I didn't even understand it, so how can I explain it?
Yeah.
So and then who was the first psychologist I saw?
So what, then you didn't go back for a while because you were like, fuck this, I've just had a bunch of wires put on my head. This isn't for me. And kind of just went back about your business for a few
years. I was getting managed by a GP. Okay. And I was just doing SSRIs. But I had ADHD and so they didn't work. And back then also, like, my lack of knowledge, society's lack of knowledge, whatever, both. I expected to take this tablet and everything to be fucking straight. There was no, and I'm not picking on anyone or whatever. It just is what it is. But there was no, all right, Sam, so this is going to do about 15% of the work. but you can make it do 30% of the work if you do 70% of the work. And this is what the work looks like. There was nothing tangible.
Yeah.
And I think to a degree that's still an issue. It's probably not as bad as it was then, but it's still an issue that I think a lot of people talk about mental health all the time and talk to someone, and that's cool. Like I love that it's so prevalent. But I think there's a lack of tangible fucking things that people can do to improve, like, you know what I mean? Like simple, basic, tangible stuff people can go and do today and feel better, like
Yeah.
that. And that's why sometimes when I write stuff, I like to write what I do, because maybe someone will go and try that and feel slightly better. And if they do, that's cool.
I think that's interesting as well. You were mentioning like breath work. Like that's something I've been into for quite a while. It was one of those things I put off for probably 10 years. It's never going to work. As soon as I started doing it, it's like, oh, this is great. I used to smoke. What is breath work? Essentially the same physical routine as smoking a cigarette. And so when you go and you cut out the cigarettes and you just keep breathing, you're like, oh, I was craving like this pattern or more oxygen or whatever it was. And it helped me get off cigarettes. It's like, what the hell? That's just like breathing and meditation to get you off an addiction. Is bizarre.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that. Like I don't want to get too off track here, but I sort of have realized lately, like I sort of developed an unhealthy relationship with running and fitness goals and stuff. And in early sobriety, that's sweet. Like fucking white knuckle it, do whatever you have to do. But now I sort of came to a realization that like I was fucking expecting myself to run 100 Ks a week and do all these things. So fucking people give me kudos on Strava or, like it was, and I would get down on myself if I didn't run 100 Ks in a week, or, like if I didn't have time to run. I used to think there's no point going for a run unless you run for 10 Ks.
Whoa.
So like I'd not run. I'd just not go for a run because I didn't have an hour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and you're lucky enough to be able to run 10 Ks in an hour as you're fit. But some people listening, including myself, give me an hour and a half to clock that.
But it's like what I've realized now is through that, because I'm sort of looking at now. I've found like through sobriety, like you can only work on one thing at a time and work on it properly. So my initial thing was go to the gym every single day, and it doesn't matter what you do. Like I had like a rough, structure to follow, but I knew it was better for me to go to the gym and do something than not go, because it was fucking legs down. I didn't want to do it. So like I'd go and just tell myself, just start on something you enjoy. You're here, just fucking do something. Because it was about being there and just fucking, embedding a new habit and doing something positive for the endorphins and stuff. So yeah, that was my focus for a while. I actually went to AA when I was probably 25 for like 3 months. And I considered that, but I don't know. I didn't feel
that like once a week or once a month.
Man, you can go to a meeting every single day. You can go to 3 meetings a day in like a big city. Now you can jump online. There's like a 24-hour rolling meeting. Like, and that's cool. Like I don't go to AA, but I think that's awesome. But yeah, so I knew I didn't really want to go to AA. I would have if I got desperate enough, I reckon. But I remember when I went there, when I was younger, I stopped drinking for like 4 months, I think, when I was like 25. But I didn't feel like I fit in there. And definitely being young and fucking trying to be a hero and whatever, I probably felt like I wasn't as bad as these people. And like these guys are fucking like bad, like I'm not fucking stealing cars and fucking whatever, so so I knew I just had to be careful. And I guess like I probably just wrapped myself up a bit. Didn't do much else, like just worked and ran and went to the gym a lot, didn't run a lot actually. And then, so slowly I'm like exposing myself, because I think when you use a vice to avoid certain feelings, like when you take away that one coping mechanism that you use for fucking all of them, that leaves you very exposed. You know what I mean? So you got all these gaps, and you got to fill them with something, and then slowly start unfilling them at your. I think this is how you should do it, because if you do it all at once, it's going to be overwhelming. It's like New Year's resolutions. People try and fucking quit sugar, quit drinking, and train from out. Like, it's too much change. It's not sustainable, and it's not realistic. So, and me, man, I'm not like that. I've had to learn that. I am the kind of person who when I decide something, I want to do it yesterday, and I need it right now, kind of thing. And I really had to learn patience and focus on, like that one thing for a period until I really had it dialed. And then, once I was comfortable with that, I went back to my psychologist. That was probably the second big thing I did. Went back to her, and she said, "Oh, I'm having a baby in 3 months." I was like, mad. And then she's like, I don't mind if you go see someone else. I was like, it'll take me. She came back after 3 months to like limited people, and she let me be one of them, which was great. But I knew it would take me, by the time she was back, that's how long it would have taken me for someone else to get to know me enough anyway. So, but I think that's been one of the really important things, is to like not try and do too much, and like be sort of super gentle with yourself, and yeah, like not be sort of, have a routine, have a framework, but don't make the barrier, like the sideline, sort of rigid. You know what I mean? And allow yourself a little bit of leeway. And yeah,
what you said about, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like, my thing similar to yours is fitness and exercise. So when I went through that stuff, I just exercised and went to the gym every single day. But then I did exactly what you just said not to do, put all my eggs into the fitness basket, and then I got injured and I tore my hamstring.
And then,
fuck, now 8 months of trying to get back on track, plus now I can't exercise. What's my third thing? I didn't really have a third thing. Apart from watching footy or sport, but that involved going to the pub and having one beer and then getting a sting on and then having 10 beers.
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't have that other thing. I think that's a really good piece of advice, is to maybe have like 3 things that are sort of equal weighted, so that if one starts to drop off a little bit for whatever reason, you can still kind of balance it out.
Yeah, totally. And I like, that's why I sort of stopped going to the gym a little bit as well. Like, I hurt my back in February, and it turns out I have pars defect. So the bone that connects your tailbone to your last vertebrae, it's like that shape. I've got a fracture in mine, sort of there, and may never be fixed. So I've always been terrified. Well, especially for the last sort of, I've used exercise to on and off to manage my mental health, or try to, for a long time, like 15 years, but now I made it so important in doing that I was absolutely mortified of getting injured. And then, no coincidence, I was like, I put on like 8 or 9 kilos between February and June. And because I couldn't exercise as much as I wanted to, tried everything, chiro, physio, injections, all this sort of stuff. And anyway, I got there in the end, but like, I'd put on all this weight. And so I was eating now, because I was too afraid. The time I'd spend exercising, I was too afraid to spend that sitting with myself.
Yeah.
So I was eating more. And that's something I'm sort of trying to deal with now. I know I have a really love-hate relationship with food, and I've had, that's why I've run as well, like to try and manage my weight, because I'm sort of, that's my new thing I'm sort of focusing on. I've sort of spent the last 6 months focusing on sleep and breath work and stuff. But yeah, like, I've learned that. I was just thinking when I was driving home this Arvo, like, I almost never ever eat when I'm hungry. I eat because it's a certain time of day, or I'll eat because I just got home from work, or
that's a routine thing more than I'm hungry.
Yeah, that, and my biggest times I struggle with wanting sweet food is between when I get home and dinner, and then between dinner and bed. And that's because work's over. It's wind down time. My brain is fucking exposed to whatever's in there because I've got nothing to distract myself.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And I don't drink anymore. So like it's hard. But I'm just sort of figuring this stuff out now. That's the same with any vice, right? Like I think I believe that I understand there are some different sort of cases, but I think most cases of people who struggle with, addictive problems, it's almost always an escape from something.
Yeah.
And I think often the hardest part about that is often you don't know what it is. You become so good at avoiding the thing that you start avoiding it before you even know what it is. And then you're like, well, fuck, like, okay, I won't fucking go to the cupboard, or I won't have a beer, and I'll sit here and I'll try and be with it. But you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to like let it come. It's really fucking hard, and it's such a hard thing to explain to someone else how to do, because it's not a, you can't see it, you can't touch it.
Yeah, and it's different for everyone, right? Like everyone has slightly different vices. I think this is something that when we were talking, like, you're very open about going and talking with your psychologist, and it's just something that's ingrained in you now. Like, that's amazing. Is like, how do we kind of help other people feel comfortable enough to just have those regular check-ins? Because that's my big thing. If I could go back 10 years ago, I'd just fucking drag him there and be like, this will help you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I think I've seen like 5. The one I see now, I've been seeing for probably 4 years, maybe.
Nice.
And I said, like, every at the end of every appointment, she's like, "Oh, what do you want to do about your next appointment?" I said, 4 weeks, every single time. And when I went back to her, when I was, newly sober and stuff, it was every fortnight. And then we backed it back off for 2 weeks. But like, like all these things, and like you said, like I just wish I'd done it sooner, and I wish that my mindset towards these people was, like, they're not all the same. Like, like if you go to Macca's and you want and you try something, chances are, if you think it's shit, you're going to think it's shit at the next Macca's. But psychologists aren't like that. You know what I mean? These people aren't like that. They are personable to you. You know what I mean? And just because you didn't have a good experience with a psychologist doesn't mean they're a bad psychologist. You need to be willing. I suppose the first thing is understanding that you might not find the right psychologist for you the first 3 times. Like, you might not, and that's fine. Like, because it's literally 2 people sitting in a room and we're all different. Like, and I know it's hard to go the first time, the second time. But I think you just need to have enough sort of love and respect for yourself to persist with it, because it's worth it. Like, I mean, what's the alternative?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's at the bottom of the bottle or something like that, which is
you just want to be like, these people are there, and there's programs to, help financially. Get mental health plan. You get 12 rebated sessions a year. Like, and that's as simple as going to a GP. Go to one that you've been to before if you can, and again, like, it's just like, it's probably the reward so far outweighs that little bit of fear at the start. And it's like one of those things like breathwork. Like, people, if people rant and rave about, say it's a good thing, say you should do it, chances are people are fucking right. Like they wouldn't exist. If they didn't work, they wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't fucking question whether a heart surgeon is legit, right? Like, do we need them? Like, yeah, we do. Like, and I think it's been hard for me. Like, this sort of period to like be selfish a little bit and prioritize myself, because I never have. I've always, you know, wanted other people to like me, so I'd prioritize other people, you know.
That's an
And
important mind shift, I guess, that a lot of people would struggle to do. Like, how long do you think it took you to get to that state of mind you're in now?
I actually wrote a blog, something along the lines of like about being selfish, and how like being selfish isn't selfish, which sounds fucked up, but and it was along the lines of like, you have to, like, it's a sobriety taught me to be selfish to the amount that I needed to be, because if when you ask someone in recovery, or particularly someone who's been in AA or whatever, or in a program, and they'll say, like, if you ask them what's the most important thing in your entire world, and they'll always put sobriety before their family, before their kids, blah blah blah, and it always feels like, oh, that's fucked up. But the reason they say that is because you need to think about the person you present to the people who you care about the most, the version of yourself you want to present to these people. And if you care about them the way you say you do, you'll want to present the best version of yourself to them.
Yeah.
And to do that, your first priority every day needs to be sobriety. But not everyone has, problems with addiction, but your first priority should be your own mental health, because it's the same thing. Like, if you're not like mentally well, what good are you going to be to your missus or your kid or your mom or whatever? Like, you come home and you're miserable. You're not out value adding to any, you know what I mean? And that's not to bag anybody. Like, it's just, like anyone in that situation are feeling that way about themselves anyway. So I suppose maybe, use those people that you care about as your motivation or whatever. Like,
Yeah, I know that. And one of the things I've heard Benny Alexander say before about Alfred is that he's not there to help you lose 20 kilos. Like, he's there to help you get the energy back to spend time with your kids or like do something that you love, which is kind of like similar. Family and friends and relationships are so important, and something I didn't really notice until later on. Like, I definitely lost a few partners early on in my 20s from just being exactly like this, just not being the best version of myself, going out drinking and partying all the time and not thinking about what they wanted. I was probably awful to be around at points because I was just hungover all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting that when you just said not being the version that they wanted or whatever, it's fun. Like, there's different sort of levels and types of selfishness, I guess. Like, like making the decision to be in a relationship, you've made that decision, and then so you're kind of telling them, yeah, I'll, not be selfish by going out all fucking weekend and whatever. And then so that probably is selfish. But then if you're gonna be selfish, use it to better yourself, not.
Yeah.
It's like you're at this point and you're feeling this way. You can go that way and be selfish, or you can go that way and be selfish. It depends what decision you make when you're there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's fucking hard, man. Like, I did it for fucking. I got drunk when I was 13. It was the first time. And back then, like, you drank to get drunk. And that's how I drank all my life until I stopped. Because that's what I thought you did it for. You know what I mean? I was like, well, I'll fucking drink water. If like, I'd rather drink water than like have 2 beers. I'm like, I never got it. And that's been the thing that I've had to accept is like, it took me fucking 21 years of practice and I never got it. Chances are I'm gonna, and I still have thoughts I could drink again. Like, I could do it now. I'm all right.
Don't do it.
But, yeah, but that's the thing that like it never goes away. Like, I was cruising and I was in Thailand at my mate's wedding and I had like the worst craving only 3 weeks ago. I had the worst craving I've had in like 12, 13 months. It doesn't, so you just gotta, I think like it's challenging to stay vigilant in terms of your mental health. Like, it's, you gotta do a lot, but it's like you do a lot anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, where, like Benny talks about energy all the time. Like, You can do things that, and this is a Benny quote, you can do things that like, you can use your energy on things that give you more energy, you know, and they're, you know, things like spending time with people you care about, walking in nature, or going for a run, like going to the gym, like, or you can use it to do dumb shit. And I think like one of my biggest things is I just wish younger people would just like give up the fucking bravado, you know, fucking facade about like, you know, social media. Like they're so worried about the way they're viewed by other people, and it's like such a. And I know everyone talks about it, but like, your life is so much better when you don't care like what people think. And you like, I was fucking terrified to fucking. I didn't tell my missus about my blog until like I was fucking half a year sober.
Whoa.
You know what I mean? I didn't share it on my own Instagram or whatever for about the same amount of time. Like, and every time I took a little step like that and fucking, you know, shared it with someone, every single time I was like, fuck, look, people aren't bagging me out for this. People are saying nice things about it. Like, why I'm a dickhead. Like, why was I so worried about this? You know, like, and yeah, I just wish, you know, particularly like in construction, because it's the culture, because you still got those old people about that are, you know, drink every day and whatever, and then young people come in and like you were saying last week about the smoking, like you just did it because everyone else was doing it, you know, before you, I suppose maybe your brain wasn't sort of mature enough to make decisions for yourself at that time. You just did what everyone else was doing. It was same thing with me, 19 years old, working, you know, 150 nights a year away with a bunch of, you know, 40 to 60-year-old men, you know, in country towns who fucking blow all their laha every single night. You know, whatever's left goes straight in the pokies once they're blind. Like it, and that's what I thought adults did. You know, like as someone who drank all as a teenager as well, like I was like, how good's this? I'm like allowed to do it, and like, you know what I mean? I'm in a town, no one can tell me what to do, and yeah, like I just think if there was like a one main message, it would be like, don't like just sort of try and look wider. You know?
I think that was kind of like the last thing I just wanted to quickly touch on, and that was we were mentioning last week, like using humor to break down stigmas, which is something you do so well when you write. And you know, when we're talking about how do we get across or to get this message across to people who are younger, like that's definitely got to be one of the ways, right? Like humor and writing and openness is surely key to breaking down those stigmas.
I think it's about being, yeah, because it's relatable. I think the word is relatable, because like you can have a fucking, you know, like a neuro fucking expert who's a lecturer at a, you know, Harvard, come and speak to 100 construction workers, and it's not gonna, like, what's the fucking good of that?
Yeah.
They don't care. They're not gonna understand the fucking literature he fucking uses, you know what I mean? Like, so I just try to write the same way I would speak to you or to anyone really, you know, like, and I think with the pictures, I started doing them, and like I am not like I sometimes I try, but like I just love like how like they're intentionally shit, because I want people to open it and be like, it's like I just think it like normalizes things a little bit, like, because it, you know, in a lot of ways, and to a lot of people, it's still a bit of a taboo sort of topic, and but it's uncomfortable, and
it's an icebreaker. The first thing I saw when I read your first blog was, yeah, like I said before, like the Photoshop of you on the wicket keeper, or, you know, as a baby or as a turtle or something. And immediately I was like, that's the first thing you see. I'm like, this is great. The icebreaker, everything is broken. I have no idea what to expect. Like your walls are down, and then you actually start reading and it's like, oh, okay. So I think in that sense, it's actually a brilliant way to start off, because if it was, you know, some AI photo of some crazy realistic looking shit, like it probably wouldn't have the same impact.
Yeah, and I I was listening to a podcast, The Imperfects, and they had the Ben Crow on there, and like, it was a good reminder to me because he said, nowhere in history is it written that life has to be serious.
Mm.
You know, and I like that resonated with me so much. I only like sort of listened to it recently. And, you know, in the mind state I'm sort of in now, things like that, I hear them differently, I suppose, to how I would have before. And it's just like all the stuff that like I stressed about and drove me, you know, to unhealthy coping mechanisms, it's most of it like ultimately doesn't matter. Like it, and we work ourselves up over so much of this shit, and we're not conscious enough to stop and be like, hang on, like what is the absolute worst outcome of this scenario? You know what I mean? And if we're like, I'm not good at it, no way, but like I think if we can improve that, like we'll realize like it's everything's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
And if it's not, it'll still be okay. Like 85% of the things we worry about never happen.
Mm.
You know, and it's something like 97%, you know, of things we worry about, we have a solution for already. You know, but we let that 3% dictate so much of how we feel and what we do or what we don't do. Oh, I can't do that. Or, you know, fuck, I better do this because that might happen. And like none of it ever happens.
Mm.
You know what I mean? But we spend so much of our life doing things in case.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why we're miserable because we're doing shit that we don't want to do because people have convinced us that if we don't do them, something bad might happen.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's actually ridiculous when you say it like that.
But it's not, and this is why I get so much from writing, because I don't know this shit until I tell it to myself.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because it like you just got to sometimes be a bit more objective, try and step aside and you know, and I mean, like sobriety's helped me a lot with that, and like becoming a dad and stuff. Like, you know, all I ever wanted was a house. So I was, you know, you got to have a fucking house. You got to have a house. I felt like my sort of upbringing made me feel like if I never ended up buying a house, I would be frowned upon by all of society. You know what I mean? And now I got two, and guess what? I don't give a fuck about them. I honestly don't. I don't care. Like, nothing. All the things that I've worked so hard towards, running marathons, saving for a house, buying a house, none of them, and I mean this, have given me any fulfillment whatsoever.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Like the most fulfilling thing that I do is fucking like come home to my son and you know write blogs. Like I don't love my job, I don't hate my job, it's a good job, but it doesn't fulfill me. I can do it, pays me enough to allow me to do the things I want to do outside of work. So that's sweet. But like, you know, like I think we're just so, you know, I'm not saying fucking, you know,
Everyone quit your jobs.
yeah. But like it's just got to find that balance and just really ask yourself, like, you know, like there's nothing like I just went to Thailand like we talked about for 2 weeks. I've been on holidays where I've fucking gone and partied and gone to nightclubs and, you know, drank piss and, you know, in places where you're allowed to wear boardies in a nightclub. How cool, like whatever. And it's by far, it's far and away the greatest holiday I've ever had, and I didn't drink one drop of alcohol. Like, and I'm not saying people shouldn't drink. Like, if you can drink and improve the experience that you're having, if it genuinely improves the experience you're having, like, you know, most normal people can do, great, do it. But like, yeah, like I don't know, like I've just I sort of had a bit of a light bulb moment, sort of, you know, well, lots of them, I guess, over the last 16 months as I fucking fast tracked the emotional maturity that I should have been working on in my 20s. But yeah, like it just, once I stopped caring about money and like, you know, we've just been through a really hard time financially with my missus on, you know, the first month she was on half pay was the first interest rate rise and we had 2 mortgages. Like, you know what I mean? And it was fucking hard, but that's why I don't care about houses anymore because like I was like, fuck it, you know, and if we run out of money, we'll sell. Like whatever. I know we'll always be okay. We work. We do the right things. We'll always be okay. Whether we got a house, 10 houses, 0 houses, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, it really doesn't. Like, and like, have goals. Fuck, if you want to be a millionaire through houses or whatever, do it. Nah, like, but for me, like, I've just, after spending so much of my life so fucking high strung and worried about how I appeared to other people, to finally sort of just be like, and it's something I still struggle with and deal with or whatever, but to finally just be like, it's so freeing. It's just be like, I don't give a fuck. And you know, sharing my writing and whatever, that's helped me to stop caring. And I guess I'm probably sound like I'm saying, you know, stop giving a fuck about anything, but I think what I mean to say is like, you just gotta worry about what you care about.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna take that quote away from you from this. Just like all the things, and just have a think. I might just reflect on it for the next week without changing anything. Just like consciously take note of what I'm stressing about, and then if it's a part of that 95%. Or
Yeah.
like 3%. And I might just do it for a week and see how I go. And then review it in a week's time and be like, did I spend most of my last week worrying about something that's never going to happen or not? I think that's pretty smart.
And man, I'm no guru. I do it. I still do it.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? But I probably actually that, you know what I reckon is the most valuable thing that I've learned in the last 16 months is the value of reflection. Like I think we spoke about it the other day, and like, no, sorry, I'm confusing you with my psych now.
They have a shaved head and a shitty beard.
No, she doesn't.
Oh,
But no, like there's truly no point doing anything if we don't set aside the time to reflect on it. Like, in business, you do a project, you do a lessons learned.
Yeah.
Right. You review the project, where you did well, where you did wrong, what you need to do more of, what you need to do less of, fix the problems. I don't think we do that enough for ourselves, for our personal lives, for our, you know, and through writing like that essentially is reflecting, because I'm talking about things that have happened that week or before or whatever. And without reflection, there's no lessons in anything that you do. So without the lessons, how do you gauge what you think you need to improve on? And then how does things get better?
Yeah.
Like when you truly reflect, you can be like, oh, fuck, actually, hang on. That thing that I wanted to do, I did it and I didn't really enjoy it as much. It didn't give me back what I was expecting out of it. So I'm not going to worry about doing that thing anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to place so much importance on that thing anymore but if you don't reflect and you like, because when you set time aside to reflect, be it journaling, I journal every night, like real brief. Like we're asking our brains too much on its own to like we want it to fucking sort everything out on our behalf. But I think there's certain parts of it that we need to actively go in and fire up. Time is honestly the most valuable fucking commodity on the planet, and it's like having a bank account that you can't check the balance of. Like, you don't know, and you're not getting paid again. You know what I mean? So it's and we waste so much of it.
Yeah.
You know, like wait until you have a kid, man. Like fucking, you know, they reckon 75% of the time you spend with your kid is gone by the time they're 10.
Whoa.
My kid turned 1 the other day. 7.5% of my time with him, he still feels like he just turned up.
Yeah.
You know, that's a massive chunk. Like, and it's gone. It's gone. Yeah. Like I was looking over photos to like put up for his birthday party and stuff. And I was like, fuck, I miss him. Like, you know what I mean? Like different stages of him. And it's like, fuck, man. Like
I loved that you said just being overseas for 2 weeks, not drinking and just spending time with your partner and your kid was like the happiest holiday you've ever had. Like that's awesome.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You can't get a better feeling than that. But I think what's just before we go, can you tell everyone where they can follow you along? If anyone listening, like where can they start joining your blog? Where can they, are you still on Twitter or X or whatever it's called?
Yeah. So it's just sobering thoughts without any vowels. So SBRNGTHGH TS, and I think that's Instagram and Twitter. From there, you can find the Substack and whatever if you're interested. But
yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming on and having a chat today, Sammy.
no worries.
That was awesome, and I've definitely got a few quotes and things to think about myself now for the next week or two. Yeah, thanks, mate.
No worries, man. Cheers.